Radio Essex, Monday afternoon. There's the weekend Daft Punk Starboy. Right, on the way, Coldplay, BB Rexa and Florida Georgia Line. And we'll also get on French Montana next.
The radio has been around for over 100 years and has played a big part in history, whether that's broadcasting historical events or simply letting the nation know the weather. It was at one point as important to people as phones are today. So what does the future hold for radio? We asked some questions to presenters and journalists at Radio Essex to find out their views. For young people looking at getting into radio or the media industry as a career, what advice would you give them?
Work hard at everything you can possibly do to get a foot in the door. So that actually hasn't changed from 10, 20, 30 years ago. The best ways to get in are still going and doing it. The difference these days is having the qualifications and having a degree and all of that. But you still, once you've got those qualifications, need to get your foot in the door. So it's go to your local radio stations, go to local newspapers, go to TV stations if you can, ask for work experience, ask what's happening. Can you come in and shadow people? Can you sit on a show? Can you make a team? At least you're in the building then. It's having that confidence to actually get your foot in the door, you then develop. And myself, a long time ago, so over 10 years ago now, when I was a student, it was going in, sitting on a news desk and shadowing, then writing some stories, and then it was, right, well, we haven't got anybody to read the sports news this afternoon, can you read the sports news? And so on and so on and so on. So the more you show your face, the more you show your confidence and your skill set, the more opportunities you get.
Who were your mentors?
I was quite lucky because being a member of hospital radio when I was 16, a lot of the members went on to work at Essex FM, which is now Heart, and I managed to get a job just by knowing those people from hospital radio to get a job at Essex FM as it was then, and that to me was like, wow, I've got a foot in the door at a big commercial radio station. So the likes of Martin Day, who does the breakfast show on Heart, he's actually one of my neighbours. I live opposite him. And when I was a lot younger and really wanted to get into radio, I used to chat to him and say, look, can I come down to the studios? Can you tell me what to do here, there? And he used to be a big help with that. Obviously, just talking to radio presenters, they all help and they all give you guidance. So, and you kind of learn that when you're on hospital radio and you go to other radio stations. There's people there that have been in the industry for a long time and they'll show you the right direction.
Over 80% of radio listeners are over 50. What are you doing to make the younger listeners stay tuned?
I think that is the challenge. I think how many young people are tuning into a radio station. But I think, as I say, if you embrace the social media platforms that they're on and you use them and get them integrated with what you're doing on the radio, I think that's the way to win. Playing the new music artists that we get in, that's quite new to us and something we can own. If we get a brand new artist in on the show, we can promote that on social media channels, get them to promote it on social media channels. So that works quite well, but it is a challenge because young people, the way they consume everything is completely different to the way, as you say, people are over 50 consume. But it will change, but I think that's why radio needs to be multi-platform. It needs to own that market.
Is there still a competition to break a story?
100% it's about breaking that story first, it's just how you break it. So even 5 years ago, but certainly 10 years ago, it was who could get the reporter down there first, get the interview on the scene and get it back on the radio. Now, it's probably, in all honesty, who can tweet it first. So if we get wind, I'll give you an example, up the seafront here in Southend, there was a crash about 2 weeks ago on a Friday afternoon, a car flipped onto its roof, a guy was injured, lots of people around the scene, traffic backing up. Now, as the radio station that is literally 2 minutes away, it would be terrible if we weren't the ones breaking that. So it was, get someone down there, take photos, ping that photo back on WhatsApp or whoever you're going to do it and get that straight on Twitter. So that was actually on Twitter 45 minutes before it was on air in terms of news, and it was being spoken about in the travel and all that. But breaking news these days isn't who can get the story first into a news bulletin, it's who can get it on Twitter. So we have our Radio Essex News Twitter handle, we have the Radio Essex Twitter handle which can retweet what they do as well. That is how we break news locally, and then it is more details on air at 2 or whenever that's going to be. But breaking news these days is Twitter, and it is still very competitive between the radio stations and the other media outlets.
There's so many rules and laws to follow, like most things. If you've had the chance to get rid of one, what would it be?
Yeah, there is a lot of rules. There's too many to go through, actually. You're not allowed to say certain things. You're not allowed to promote certain things. I I've always been, it should be freedom of speech. So if you want to say something, you should be able to say it. But radio has got one of the biggest restrictions out of all of the medias.
Many things happen on air. What's the best thing that's ever happened to you?
There's a horrible trait in journalists, which all journalists, when they talk to each other, agree with, in the most horrible story, be it a death, a murder, unfortunately, does give you an adrenaline rush covering that. It's a horrible thing to say, but it's because you're not doing news because you're like, oh great, murder, but covering that and informing the population of that is one of the reasons that you do news. So with that in mind, one of the biggest buzzes that I got on air was I was on covering news when Michael Jackson died, 2009. It basically meant that I could do a day of playing Michael Jackson tracks in news bulletins, which is just completely unprecedented. And actually, in that sense, it wasn't the sadness of his death, it was the obituary style of looking back at his life and just how popular he was and just how good his music was. Similarly, presenters on that day would have been like, great, we've got carte blanche to play Michael Jackson stuff and to play our favourite Michael Jackson stuff. So that was a day that I look back on with a smile on my face, not because it was like great covering a death, but because of the way that we covered it. Things that have made me laugh, I mean, it's always funny in radio when you mispronounce something and it comes out in a slightly controversial or dodgy way. I mean, I'll leave you to work it out, but I've done weather bulletins before where instead of saying patchy miss, I've got my first letters the wrong way round with sweary consequences. The best thing in radio is the conversation in radio between either yourself and a guest or yourself and another presenter, where you have banter and all of that. That's why we love the job, that's why we enjoy it, because you do come to work enjoying and loving the job and wanting to come back that day and wanting to come back the next day. So radio is a job you do for the love of it. So yeah, when we have the ability to do that on air, that's when you come home afterwards and say like, yeah, I had a good day today.
What's the worst thing that's ever happened on air?
The worst thing is in what's happened on the radio. Technical problems can happen. Obviously, you might be talking and then the microphone's not plugged in or it's just not working. Stuff going wrong on the computer system. So obviously, it makes to you when you're on air, you want everything to run smoothly. But when stuff like that happens, then it's kind of like, oh, why is it happening to me? So that's kind of the worst things. Obviously, if there's natural disasters that happened, or obviously Princess Diana's death, stuff like that could happen whilst you're on air, and you've kind of got to deal with that. So there's some of the worst things that can happen or have happened.
Over the years, social media has had a massive impact on the media industry. Music can be downloaded illegally, films can be streamed. Has social media helped radio?
I think you need to embrace that. I think the social media is there, Spotify is there, iTunes is there, all of those ways to listen to music are there. But radio's got a place in people's lives. If you're listening on the breakfast show, you're not going to hear a problem on the A127 by listening to Spotify. So people still like local radios, people still use it. Whether there's a news story that's broken in the town, whether it's a new artist, Rooty winning The Voice Saturday from Essex, there's reasons why people still listen to the radio. And I think if you embrace the social media channels and use them with Insta and Facebook, and we do a lot of Facebook Live stuff here, that's the way to do it. Radio is multi-platform now. It's not just about being on an FM radio station playing the hits for Chelmsford. It's about viral videos. It's just about being where your audience are. And most of our audience, probably 80% of our audience are probably on Facebook. So we need to embrace that and get clever with that.
Throughout the years it's been said, television is dying, movie culture isn't what it used to be. What do you think of the future holds for radio?
Radio won't die. If radio was going to die, it would be dead already. All that radio has to do is it has to embrace the 21st century. It has to embrace that the majority of stuff is going to be digital now. So you mentioned cars there. Well, a lot of people don't have an FM radio in their car anymore, they've got DAB. An increasing number of cars have actually got Wi-Fi connection now, so you talk about streaming, you can stream in your car anyway. We know that it's not as straightforward as somebody they leave the house at 8:30 in the morning to drive to work, they put on the car radio and listen to us on the way in. We know it's not as straightforward as that now, but you may do that through streaming Wi-Fi in your car, you may do it through your phone. However you do it, people will still want to listen to radio. And research and statistics wise, even last year in 2017, people were saying that local news on radio was still their most trusted media source. So radio's not going anywhere.